Hello and welcome to Wellness Live. My name is Dr. Olivia Moses, and this production is brought to you by the Living Whole Wellness Program right here at Loma Linda University Health. Well, how many of you have a social media account? How many of you check your phone multiple times a day? How many of you wake up in the middle of the night to check your phone? I think we all have been in that scenario, and it has been a big hot topic on how do we create actually real relationships in this whole virtual world. However, that question has come up, maybe in your household, in my household. We have a great expert to talk to you today. Today I'm very excited to introduce to you one of the best people we have on our campus. His name is Dr. D.P. Harris. He is a Vice President and Chief Information Officer for our very own Loma Linda University and has been here working at the institution for 16 years. So he is the perfect person to talk to us about having real relationships. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. D.P. Harris. DP? DP, it's your time now. DP? Dr. Harris?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Hi. Oh, is it?
We are live.
We're live. Wellness Live. Oh, thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Dr. Moses said, I'm DP Harris. And I'd like to talk to you today about real relationships in a virtual world. How to not be on the cell phone when you're supposed to be talking to people. Today, during our conversation, I'm going to actually have the conversation in two parts. We're going to talk about social media and how it inhibits real relationships. We're going to talk about how social media can destroy real relationships. We'll take a break in the middle for some questions about those two topics, but we're really going to spend the second half talking about how social media can enhance real relationships. And then very exciting and most importantly maybe is how you can use social media to create new relationships. And we'll have time at the end of both of them to have questions as that too. But many of you have social media accounts. Now, depending on how old you are or how involved you are in social media, you may or may not recognize the different icons that are on the screen. And just out of curiosity, just pause and take a look and see which ones of those do you recognize. Now, I think I can name them all. Dr. Moses, correct me if you think I'm wrong on one of them that I have a bit of a question on. Okay. But the first one is Facebook. The second one, Instagram, and then Pinterest. The T is for Tumblr. We'll talk about all of these. And then Twitter, the birds there made famous by our president. And then this ghostly thing, I think is Snapchat.
Yes.
It is,
yes.
Right? All right. And then LinkedIn, for those of you who are now current active professionals, I want you to we're going to really focus on what LinkedIn will do for you. And then YouTube was where many of you are watching this program from now. The two icons on the side are an Android and an iPhone, Samsung and an iPhone, the two most popular cell phones and the two biggest distractors for inhibiting social relationships. So as we go through, we look at these different sites, and you can see the number of people who are using the sites. The Facebook is the most popular. YouTube is the next most popular. The Facebook Messenger. WhatsApp. I was surprised that was so high because I didn't think most people knew what it was, but it is really a good tool for us. Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So we're going to talk about many of these and some more. Now, when we talk about real relationships, this is what our hearts want to go toward. A real relationship is one where you're connecting person to person, where there's information exchange being shared between the people, where you're creating shared experiences together, where you're bonding, where you're providing empathy with each other. Those are real relationships. The question for us is, can you have a real relationship in a virtual world? Can you use these tools, these apps with your phone to exchange information, to create shared experiences, to have bonding, and to create empathy with each other. Well, what we've discovered is that if in a Pew Research study done in 2013, and it was repeated in 2018, I think, but you can look it up. A Pew Research study on the use of social media, they looked at whether people thought social media had a positive or negative impact on their relationships. And surprising to them, and surprising to most of you, most people said it had. Most people said it did not have an effect one way or the other. Over 75% of the people said social media had no real impact on their relationships. This is the picture of the assessment by age group, and so you can see the younger people felt it had more of an impact. The middle-aged, as we get into the older ages, it had less of an impact in their relationship, and whether it's a major impact or a minor impact. But does it inhibit real relationships? Social media has been found to create feelings of isolation for people who just want to be on their phones all the time, or they just want to be within their just spending all their time on Facebook or all their time watching YouTube. Some of my friends tell me I would never do that. No, I think I spend too much time on Facebook and on YouTube. It causes depression, and depression is caused by this thing called FOMO. FOMO. And I when I saw it, I thought that was such an interesting acronym. It actually, stop and guess. Guess what it means. FOMO is the fear of missing out. It is the sense that you are isolated in plain sight. You can be with other people, but you're concerned that people are having fun without you. I post quite actively on Facebook. Usually I'm posting if I'm traveling or if there's something going on. And a few years ago, I put this post, this image up on my Facebook site because people said, "Oh, DP, what an exciting life you have." And I said, "No, well, let's be clear. I do not post most of my life on Facebook. Most of my life is boring and you don't want to see it. Some of it's normal, everyday, interesting. Everyday stuff, you don't want to see it. Some of the stuff I post I think is interesting, you probably don't, but I post it anyway. Some of the stuff is actually probably 1% of what I post you would find interesting. And then random thoughts that come to my mind and, post. And then off to the bottom, it's embarrassing. Maybe I'll post it, or it's humiliating, and I definitely will not post those things. But when you see other people's Facebook posts, do you feel like, oh, I wish I had a life like theirs? Oh, my life is so boring. Hey, they're having fun and I'm not. I remember a couple of weeks ago, after I had gotten back from extensive travels and had fun and showing everybody all of my posts, I remember getting back and looking at a post online. And it was one of my friends who was in Spain having fun, whatever they were doing. And I remember saying, oh, I wish I could travel. And it was so funny to me because I just got finished traveling quite extensively. And so I saw online this thing called a FOMO quiz. Now, you can look it up yourself. We're not going to go all the way through the FOMO quiz. But it asks questions like, do I fear others are having more rewarding experiences than I am? Do I fear my friends are having more rewarding experiences than I am? Do I get anxious when I find out my friends are having fun and they didn't invite me? These are the types of questions that are asked on the FOMO quiz. When I took the FOMO quiz, and I came up with a little or no FOMO score. Now, that doesn't mean I don't use social media a lot. What that actually means is I'm a very introverted person, and I like being by myself, and if somebody else is having fun, I'm happy with it, that they're having fun. But it doesn't mean that I don't have some of these other flaws. Social media destroys relationships. Social media, if you spend too much time on it, you're ignoring your partner. I don't know how many of you have been in the same spot with someone you love and on your social media. I know I have, I know I do. So I'm not telling you, if you come into my home or come into my world, you'll see me distracted on my phone when I should be engaging. Here's the types of things that people argue about with social media. Here are the types of negative experiences people have. One of the bigger things people argue about is they argue about partners spending too much time online. That's usually one partner is not that much into social media, the other is. They're upset by something the partner was doing online. Now, I'm not going to bother to speculate what that partner might have been doing, but it was not conducive to the relationship. The other thing that probably hits close to home for most of us is you're distracted while when you're together, you're on the phone instead of being engaged. How many of you have spent some time out someplace doing something fun and you had to get out your phone and take a picture of it and post it on Facebook or on Instagram right away? Oh, people have to know about this. Well, I've come up with this saying that says you cannot photograph fireflies. There are times when you need to post and show these pictures, but there are often times when you need to just stop and have the experience. The cannot photograph fireflies comes from a time when my wife and I were in the Philippines and we went out on a nighttime safari to see fireflies. And the fireflies were all around glowing. It was so beautiful. And I pulled out my phone because I had to get it on Facebook. And I pulled out my phone, my nice little Samsung 8, and it just couldn't. I clicked and clicked. And I said, you know what? Let's just enjoy the experience. And I tried to as much as possible. Don't photograph fireflies. My wife said to me one day, this is a joke I found somewhere. She said, honey, you weren't even listening to me. And I stopped and I thought, that's an odd way to start a conversation. So be in the moment. Put your phone away. Don't be envious of other people. That's talking about the negative parts of it. Let's take a moment to see if there's any questions.
Well, I have a very exciting news for you if this is the first time you are here watching us Wellness Live, because if you are watching us live, you have the opportunity to ask Dr. Harris some questions. So go ahead and type them down. We have some coming through, Dr. Harris. So this is a very interesting question, how has social media benefited you as a leader?
Oh, see, that's a nice, solid question, because what you, and we'll talk about some of this in the next section, but what social media allows you to do is stay connected. It allows you to humanize the people you're dealing with. And so it's likely enough, as I'm going around my professional world, those who are friends on Facebook, I'll be able to say, hey, you just got back from Spain. How was it? I loved your pictures. Tell me about such and such. And so I can automatically connect with people that way.
Right. Well, excellent. Another thing is, can social networks harm a person's reputation?
Very, very, very important. Very important. And that is where you have to be cognizant of what you're posting. And, you know, we always like to say, presume that if you're posting something, it's going to go on the evening news. Even if it's in a private group, even if once something gets up electronically, it is up there forever. You can delete it, you can hide it, it's been posted. You have no control over what happens. And so I've seen instances where people have posted things, they've said things that they shouldn't have said, they've posted pictures of themselves in situations that is ill-advisable. And so keep in mind who all could see your post before you post something up there.
And the post doesn't tell anything about the poster's motivation, and it can be interpreted any way.
Any way the reader wants to.
Yeah, I love that you talk about FOMO. So let's talk about FOMO a little bit. So one of the questions I have is, I think a lot of times people look at other people's wonderful lives and they start feeling bad about their own. And I think our children do that too. How do you talk to a child, or what is your advice to talk to a child about, you know what, your life is not bad, their life is not even that good?
Right.
You know, how do you have that conversation?
Right. And so you know that I spend a lot of time at my church with the junior high age, and the junior high age is just prone for, and the 12 to 16 age group is where you really want to belong and you want to connect. And so it's very important that when we're having these experiences, we can parallel what the child is seeing online with something that happened in their life. And we can just reflect, hey, if I had taken a picture at this moment, that's what it would look like. You know, all we're seeing at any moment in time we share with them is a snapshot, literally a snapshot, because you don't even know what was happening 10 minutes or 2 minutes prior to that. Let me tell you just a brief story, because I laugh when I watch, and forgive me I remember watching what had to have been about a 13 or 14-year-old girl. And she was taking pictures, and she was fussing with her friend next to her, and she'd smile for the camera and take a selfie and go, right? And then she'd go back to fussing, and I just watched the dichotomy between the actual what energy she had and the picture that she was going to be posting on Instagram. And just realizing that picture is never reality.
Right.
It is merely a snapshot.
A snapshot. And what's interesting to me too, celebrities have a whole team for their Instagram pages.
Yeah.
So even how they look is doctored before they even put the image out there.
That's
so
right.
we're looking at things that are, let's just say, a little bit off of reality.
That's correct.
Okay, for our last question in this segment, what's one piece of advice that you can offer to someone who has just started with social media?
You just started with social media. Well, this one came to me a couple of days ago, because different people have been seeing that I'm doing this, and so everybody wants to give me advice on how to do this presentation, which is awesome. I appreciate all of you. Was limit the number of friends you have. You know, this whole concept of on my Facebook account, I have, I think, 1,127 friends.
Wow.
I don't think there's more than 5 of them that I could call at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, can I talk?
Right.
Right? But the ones that I'm more likely to call at 2 o'clock in the morning actually aren't on Facebook. Right? But I make a couple of judgments about who I call my friends and who I allow to be my friends. Mostly I try to make this judgment. If I saw you across the room, across a crowded room, and I said to myself, oh, I want to go and talk to that person, that's a friend of mine. If it's somebody, if I heard you were in town and I said, we've got to get together, that's a friend. But of the 1,027, there are people I went to high school with. There are people who I went to college with, haven't seen in 30 years, people I had a 10-minute relationship at some point in time on one of my travels. When you're starting off, keep your friend group as small as possible. It gives you a lot more flexibility what you can post and what you can do on there.
I think that is great advice. So again, just to remind our audience, please type in your questions for Dr. Harris, and why don't we get to our second half?
Okay. So in the second half, we talk about how social media can enhance relationships. Now, one of my more fun, enjoyable things to do on social media is to post things that are going to cause arguments, right? And so you'll see me post something that says, what color is this dress? Now, I am very clear that this dress is gold and white. You know, there's no question. But there are other people who just swear, and you all might be some of them, that the dress is blue and black. I can't see it. These shoes over there, they say it's the difference between whether you're right brain or left brain. I see pink and white shoes. Other people see, what color do you see, Olivia?
Gray and blue.
Gray and blue. And you sit and you can have these arguments, but it's one of the fun things to do. I put these puzzles up there just because everybody thinks they can do it, but I get more arguments generated about solving these math puzzles online, and you can have fun with that Wizard of Oz puzzle. But that's one of the fun things. You can just build solidly casual relationships, right? So you can have these casual experiences and friendly debates online, but you can also do good information exchange. You can also share experiences online. You're not having a shared experience, but when I travel or when my friends travel, I want to know where they went, what are they eating, who did you meet? And so I enjoy that, and other people enjoy. Empathy, one of the most powerful things I've seen on Facebook, on Instagram, is when someone has experienced a death and they'll post on there, I just lost my father. And you see the outpouring of love that comes. I had that experience for myself, and I've seen it for others, and people start sharing stories and telling you, and it just builds you up in a way that you can't in real life, because you would never encounter that many people. But to have 100 people tell you how wonderful your mother was or your father was and whatnot, that's wonderful. Bonding, the question, can you actually bond over social media? It can help to cement relationships. I'm going to give you a challenge. I've got a task for you right now. For those of you who are watching, it doesn't matter whether you're watching live or you're watching, excuse me, please, you're watching the tape later. I would like you to do this. I would like you to pull out your cell phone. I would like you to pull out your text message, your messenger, your texter, however you send text messages. And I'd like you to send a text message to a person that you love. I would like you to send a text message to a person that you love and say, and you cannot ask them to bring groceries home. You can't ask them to do something for you. Just take 2 sentences and tell them something that they mean, how they mean something special to you. Will you do that? That's your number one task for today. That could even be a person at work who did something today that was meaningful. Send them a message just to let them know. This starts to build connections. I'm going to repeat that challenge, but it's a real request. Social media can enhance relationships, but social media can also help create real relationships. There are different types of relationships, like neighborhood connections, or like social connections, or romantic connections, or professional connections that didn't exist outside of social media, but you use different social media tools to create those relationships. So for neighborhood connections, there's an app called Neighbor Watch or Neighborhood Watch or something like that we use to see what's going on in our neighborhood. I live in a not a remote area, but an out of the way area. And sometimes people go in there and say, well, the traffic is going to be heavy coming home, and this was why. Or, hey, there's been a strange person breaking into houses nearby. Look out for this particular person. Or things like that. Or sometimes someone just puts something interesting. I have something for sale. Somebody posted the other day, I've got some dirt. Does anybody want some dirt? And I happened to want some dirt for something I was doing, so I went over and got it. But there are websites to help you connect to your neighbors. There are other websites that just help you to find stuff to do. Maybe you don't have a lot of friends and you want to connect with other people. Well, you use things like Pinterest to find people who are doing things that are same as yours, and you can join some Pinterest groups and engage in conversations. You use things like Tumblr to find people with similar interests. Foursquare is the icon up in the top right, where when you go places, you find out other people who have been there and what's the types of things they like to do. I also want to include in here things like Groupon, which you can use to find places, the interesting things that are going on in your area that you might be interested in. Or I include Map My Run because you might find, not only will you find places, people who might be running partners with you or exercise partners, but you might also just be able to post things to your Map My Run app and have your friends, your Map My Run friends, cheer you on your physical journey. The other is we all can think about romantic connections. Now, I got my lifelong romantic connection long before any of these apps or anything came along, and so I was blessed to find my one and only in college, and so I'm good. So I don't know these apps as much as others might know, but I'm told by the younger crowd that Tinder, Bumble, OkCupid. One of my young friends was telling me Hinge is the new up and coming app to use. Coffee Meets Bagel. These are all apps that are out there to help you find the person that you will love. It creates positive experiences. Messages help to bond. Messages can help to resolve conflict. In this same Pew Research study, we found that partners said that they felt closer to their partner due to an online text or text message conversation. And again, remember your assignment. You are to do that within 2 minutes after the session. This thing ends. Sometimes you can use it to resolve conflicts or arguments online, and sometimes I see this, and I don't think my wife and I have done it, but people sitting side by side texting each other. And if it's a love note, it's kind of cute. If you can't get up to go across, if you're texting, could you please change the channel? Then I think that's a little bit off, right? So, and there's other things that people have, like sharing accounts and things like this, that how you build relationships. And my wife and I have a shared Facebook account, a different Instagram account. We have different emails, but we know each other's passwords. And so there's things like that that you do to just create the oneness between partners. And then I want to talk about professional connections. With professional connections, you have this is where you want to, as a professional, keep your reputation up to date. And so get in onto LinkedIn and join the groups, make connections and things like that. Make sure you keep it current. Make sure you ask for recommendations, and you give recommendations freely. And join the professional groups that are on these tools, because that can help you make professional connections to grow your career. And this last slide was to say spiritual connections. For those of you who use YouVersion, you can actually create friends on the YouVersion Bible. And I have quite a few friends on YouVersion, and I can see where they're reading, different things they're doing, and I can post different thoughts that I have on there and build that along. You can also have Bible study groups that you have on Zoom or on Skype and things like that. So that's another rich use of social media. So finally, wrapping up, the tips for real life: find relationships online, enhance your relationships online, find relationships online, but carry them out IRL, in real life. Don't let your entire relationship be online. Get on the phone, go out and visit each other. Be aware of your online presence. Don't post anything that you don't want on the evening news. And for couples, consider sharing passwords, sharing email accounts, sharing a shared online calendar so you can know what's going on, and shared social media profiles. I'm not saying these are absolute ideas. These are just fun ideas that different people turn to.
Well, thank you, DP. This has been great, and we have some excellent questions, so I just want to get right into them. So thank you for all of you who are watching. What about privacy with social media networks? One viewer is asking.
I would bother to say there's no such thing as privacy. Anything posted, and I'm saying this as a full caution. I believe anything that I post is out there. Now, you do want to put things, and for instance, when I travel, I have a very private group. And so it's only my very, very closest friends who can see the things that happen when I'm not at home. But you always want to be aware that anything you put out there is telling people about yourself and about what you are, what you're doing.
No, that's great advice, and it's something to be cautious of. Okay, this is another great question. Have people been able to improve their spiritual life through social media or with social media?
Yes. I've watched that. I've watched different groups gather together in online Bible studies, in contemplative book clubs, and things like that, where they're just on there and they're sharing their ideas, but they're improving their spiritual life, and they're improving their connection with each other through that.
So I think that's important to note, that connection can be had through social media.
Yes.
That wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
So we have another question here that I think is fantastic. At what age is it appropriate to introduce a child to social media? That's a tough one.
But I'll be bold, because I'm an old dad and pretty old fashioned. My kids are not kids; they're full grown adults. And I didn't wrestle with this a whole lot, but I think you're into high school. My comfort is that you're in high school before you're getting onto social media. I think most of the accounts say 12 years old or 13 is the lower limit. But there is I do encourage parents to have their kids' passwords. There's no right to privacy for a 12 and 13-year-old. You should be friends with your child. But the problem with social media is the FOMO. Is everybody has this but me. Everybody's having fun but me. And it just escalates the amount of disconnectedness that people have. I haven't seen it in the junior high age enhance relationships. I've just seen it make things more complicated.
Okay, no, that's a great point. I do think that we don't have a lot of time left, so I'm having to, choose questions, but I think this is an important one in our very short time now that we should be ending soon, is how common and dangerous is cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying is unfortunately a very huge problem in high school, because and for older ages too. But it's a particular problem there because kids don't have kids and many people don't have the same boundary online that they have otherwise, and they'll say things and do things, and it is one of the reasons why they report that suicide has gone up among teenagers. And so it's one of the reasons why I encourage parents to monitor their kids' social media activities. Forgive me, kids, for that, but I do, because it is a real problem, and it needs to be addressed both with the bully and the bully's parents if you see it.
Right. And you'll never know if you're not actively involved in your kids' social media. So, DP Harris, Dr. Harris, thank you so much for being here. This has been a fantastic topic, just with all the questions that we're getting. And I want to thank each of you for joining us here on Wellness Live. I want to say, please join us again next month, because we have Wellness Live every month. We're going to be talking about moving from conflict to collaboration. And we have our Vice President of Human Resources here to talk to us about that. So again, thank you so much for visiting us today here at Loma Linda University Health. My name is Dr. Olivia Moses, and we'll see you next time.